Hey there, this is Tyler Choice, reading The Path of God's Bondsmen from Origin to Return. A little bit about me. I am a student of the esoteric, of mysticism, and I've been led over the last few weeks to this. Got a little audio bounce back here. I've been drawn to this text in my pursuit of more, I suppose you could say I'm on a search for total oneness with the divine or the higher God, source. There's a calling in me that has driven me pretty far, and it's up to this point, it's led me to this text that I'd like to just jump right into. It's about a 4-part text. The first part, I'm just going to try to read the first part today. Gets a little bit more interesting, it looks like, towards the end of the second part, into the third part. I'm going to mispronounce this, but what originally drew me to it was the model of the Latif. It's the Sufi model of the centers of a person, the centers of their soul. And this text looks to be very foundational in Sufi thought. It's very understandable, where a lot of Sufi texts are really not even approachable. So this is something I really want to just jump right into and see what I get out of it. This text starts, "In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful." In the prologue, "Praise without end and laudation without limit to that monarch from whose magnificence the existence of all beings results, and whose existence is praised and magnified by their excellence. There is naught but celebrates his praise. That Lord who, out of the creativity of his nature, and the artistry of his wisdom, inscribed, with the pen of generosity, the impress of souls on the leaf of non-being, who concealed the water of life that is gnosis, knowing, in the darkness of the createdness of the human state. In your own selves too are signs. Will ye not then see? Who enabled the distraught and the thirsty wanderers in the desert of the search to tread, like Alexander, nests of human attributes with the foot of sincerity, and who, in his uncaused grace, brought those like Khizr, burned with the fire of love, to the fountainhead of the water of life that is gnosis? Is he who was dead, to whom we gave life, and a light to walk by among men, like him who is in the darkness, and comes not forth therefrom?" Now there's a footnote, a couple references to the Quran. This footnote for like Alexander, we have Alexander being depicted in legend by medieval Islam as the archetype of the seeker after illumination. His progress through the world was seen as inspired not so much by a lust for conquest as by a desire for mystical knowledge, his outer journey serving as the mirror and support of the inner journey. An attempt was made to identify him with a Quran figure, His goal, the water of life, was basically gnosis, direct cognition of reality, was found concealed in a region of utter darkness on the fringe of the earth. The source of illumination is analogously to be found hidden in the tenebrous density of man's corporeal state. Dea makes frequent reference and allusion to these components of the Alexander legend, which is one of the favorite themes of Persian narrative poetry. It adds a little more references to where these have appeared, and the theme of Alexander as the spiritual seeker became part of the literary patrimony of all the Muslim East. Then Khizr is the ubiquitous and immortal personification of the initiatic principle, generally identified with the unnamed figure encountered by Moses. In the Bible, Moses is encountered by his father-in-law, so it sounds like he's not in the Quran. His father-in-law is not in the Quran. His father-in-law is supposed to have come from another place and transmitted some kind of knowledge to him. He also appears in the Alexander legend as the supreme guide on the path, who finally conducts him to the water of life. That's Khizr. Salutations without number and plaudits without bound to those sanctified spirits in unsullied frames, the 120,000 and more instances of prophethood and repositories of manly nobility, who were wayfarers on the paths of truth, and exemplary guides in the hands of the law. These it is to whom we have given the book, and authority and prophethood. Of the caravan of saints, Mohammed the chosen one. May God bless and give abundant peace to him and his family, his wives and goodly pure descendants, his righteous successors, rightly guiding and rightly guided, and all his companions. It seems to be a formal additive prayer every time the Prophet Muhammad is mentioned in Islam. O brothers in God's guidance, and companions in the reverential fear of him, may God enable us all to rise from the depths of the human state to the summit of his servitude, and grant us that we slough off the attributes of the human domain, and don those of the divine domain. Know that the purpose and essence of all creation is the existence of man, and all that partakes of existence throughout the twin realms does so by virtue of his existence. If one possesses clear and total vision, he will recognize that all of existence is man. Thou art the height and depth of this world. I know not who thou art. All that is, thou art. The purpose of the existence of man is knowledge of the essence and attributes of God Almighty. Thus, when David asked, O Lord, why didst thou bring forth creation? The Almighty answered, I was a hidden treasure, and I desired to be known. Thus I brought forth creation, that I might be known. We have some references from a verse from, it looks like, a Sufi. According to a dream, earned the poet forgiveness for his sins. It is frequently quoted in Sufi literature. Knowledge of God can be attained only by man, for although the angels and the jinn, the genies, are his partners in the worship of God, man was set apart from all other beings by accepting the burden of the trust of this knowledge. We offered the trust to the heavens and the earth and the mountains, but they refused to bear it, being afraid thereof, and man accepted to bear it. By the heavens are meant their inhabitants, the angels; by the earth its inhabitants, the animals; jinn and demons by the mountains, their inhabitants, the wild beasts and birds. None of these was fit to bear the burden of the trust of knowledge. For out of all creation, it was only man whose soul desired to be a mirror to the beauty of the divine presence, and to manifest all of his attributes, both passively and actively. There's the law of three mentioned. the passive and active forces. This is the meaning, and we'll check that footnote 10. This is the meaning of the saying that God created Adam in his own image. The essence of the soul of man is the heart, and the heart is like a mirror, with the two realms of creation enclosing it like a pericardium. It is in this mirror that all the attributes of the beauty and splendor of the divine presence are manifested. Thus he said, "We will show them our signs upon the horizons and in their souls." Men and jinn have their being for the sake of the mirror. Throughout the twin realms, every gaze falls onto the mirror. The heart is the mirror of that imperial beauty, and these twin realms are the cover of that mirror. When the soul, inherently disposed to the state of mirrorhood, is nurtured and brought to perfection, it will observe in itself the manifestation of all the divine attributes. It will know itself and the purpose for which it has been created, and thus realize the meaning of the saying that he who knows his self knows also his Lord. It will come to recognize its own nature and to understand the mystery on account of which it has been ennobled and preferred. 10. It has been suggested that the passage of the work, with its evocation of the burden of the trust, served to inspire the following line in the Divan of Hafiz. The heavens were unable to bear the burden of the trust. The task fell to the lot of this crazed one. The feeble one says, "O thou copy of the script divine, O thou mirror of the royal beauty, naught in the world lies outside of thee. Ask of thyself thine every desire, thou art it." But for the soul of man to reach the perfection of the degree that is lustrous mirrorhood, many paths and perilous places must be traversed. A task fulfilled only by following the highway of the law, the path, and the truth. As iron is extracted from the mine and treated with numerous subtle stratagems in water and fire, passing from the hand of one craftsman to another, in order gradually to become a mirror, so too man is the mine, from which the iron for this mirror is extracted. Men are mines, like mines of gold and silver. The iron must be carefully brought forth from the mine of man's being, and then tempered until, passing gradually through a series of degrees, it attains the rank of mirrorhood. The reed thou seest standing tall on the shore grows and sprouts from stem to stem. We have a saying variously attributed to the prophet. It's an almost universal occurrence in Sufi literature. Some references to where these works come from. This triad of law, path, and truth refers to the outer dimension of religion. Its inner aspect is going to be the law, I believe. The center which vivifies and lies at the heart of both of these. The outer dimension of religion. Second, its inner aspect. And third, the center which vivifies and lies at the heart of both of these. The concern of the law is with man's bodily frame. That of the path is with his heart. And that of the truth with his spirit. The law is with man's bodily frame. That would be the structure, the container for the written word, the word as it is in stone in esoteric vocabulary. That of the path with his heart, and that of the truth with his spirit, which looks like in the third part it goes into this in depth as a model. So we're going to try to speed through the contents of this book. This book containing, it's pretty nice that such an old text gives us a list of parts and chapters and content. This book concerning wayfaring on the road of religion and attainment on the realm of certainty, the training of the human soul, and the knowledge of the divine attributes has been composed in 5 parts and 40 chapters, which shall presently be set forth, God Almighty willing. List of parts and chapters. First, the introduction to the book, containing the 3 chapters, the first explaining the utility of composing this work on the sayings of the men of the path, and the means of traveling the path, the second concerning the reason for writing the book, particularly in Persian, and the third treating of the manner and method in which the book is written. The second part is concerning the origin of created beings, and containing 5 chapters, expounding the creation of spirits and the knowledge of the stages through which they pass, describing the world of dominion and the degrees of all it contains, concerning the appearance of the different realms of kingship and dominion, explaining the beginning of the createdness of the human frame, and setting forth the origin of the attachment of the spirit to the frame. In the third part, we have concerning the life of the man, and containing 20 chapters. The first concerning the veils that cover the human spirit as a result of attachment to the bodily frame, the tribulations that spring therefrom. The second concerning the attachment of the spirit to the frame, the wise purpose implicit therein, and the benefits thereof. The third concerning the necessity of the prophets, upon whom be peace, for man's cultivation. The fourth concerning the reason for the abrogation of all the previous religions and the sealing of prophethood with Mohammed, upon whom be peace and blessings. The fifth concerning the training of the human frame in accordance with the code of the law. The sixth concerning the refinement of the human soul and the knowledge thereof. The seventh concerning the purification of the heart in accordance with the code of the path and the knowledge thereof. The eighth concerning the adornment of the spirit in accordance with the code of truth and the knowledge thereof. The ninth concerning the necessity for, I'm just going to say shake, for man's training and wayfaring. The 10th concerning the station of sheikhood, its conditions and attributes. The 11th concerning the conditions, attributes, and customs of the morid. The 12th concerning the need for zikir and the special properties of the zikir la ilaha illallah. The 13th concerning the method of uttering zikir, its conditions and customs. 14th concerning the need of the morid for transmission of zikir by the sheikh, and the property of such transmission. The 15th concerning the necessity of seclusion, and its conditions and customs. The 16th concerning certain visions deriving from the unseen, and the difference between dreams and visions. The 17th concerning the witnessing of lights and the degrees thereof. The 18th concerning unveiling and its varieties. The 19th concerning the manifestation of the divine essence and attributes. And the 20th concerning attaining to the divine presence, with neither absorption nor separation. The fourth part concerns the return of the souls of the felicitous and the wretched, and containing 4 chapters. God Almighty said, and among them some wrong their own souls, some follow a middle course, and some are foremost in good works by God's leave. And again, none shall fall into the fiercely blazing fire, but the most wretched one, who calls the truth a lie and turns away. The first chapter is returning the return of the oppressive soul, which is the reproachful soul. The second concerning the return of the soul that follows a middle path, which is the inspired soul. The third concerning the return of the foremost soul, which is the tranquil soul. And the fourth concerning the return of the most wretched soul, which is the commanding soul. Now, I don't know if this means that some people have one of these 4, or if all people have all of these 4. It does appear to be all of these 4, because I'm aware that the commanding soul is supposedly in all of us. The fifth part is concerning the wayfaring of different classes of men, and containing 8 chapters. The first concerning the wayfaring of kings and the Lord, the second concerning the state of kings, their conduct, their solicitude toward the people, the third, the wayfaring of ministers, the fourth concerning the wayfaring of different classes of scholar, the fifth concerning the wayfaring of possessors of bounty and the holders of wealth, the sixth concerning farmers, peasants, headmen, seventh concerning the wayfaring of merchants, the eighth concerning the wayfaring of tradesmen and craftsmen. And we start the first part, the introduction to the book, containing 3 chapters in accordance with the blessed saying of God Almighty. Ye shall be 3 bands. First chapter, concerning the utility of composing this work on the sayings of the men of the path and the means of wayfaring. God Almighty said, "So we have made the Quran easy by thy tongue, that thou mayest give glad tidings to the God-fearing and warn a stubborn people." The prophet, upon whom be peace, said, "A word of wisdom is the lost property of every wise man." By the way, I don't know much about the Prophet Muhammad. Know that discourse concerning the truth and exposition of wayfaring on the path bring forth the promptings of longing and the urgings of desire in the inner beings of those disposed to the search, and kindle the sparks of the fire of love in the hearts of the sincerely devoted, particularly when such discourse arises from the vision of sincere lovers and those who have attained realization. He whose heart is full of love's fire, every tale that he tells will be alluring. Seldom now do you hear the tale of a lover, so hearken unto it, it is most sweet. A quatrain presumably of Dea's own composition is the footnote there. Even the neglectful and unaware may awaken through the auspicious effect of such discourse, for one cannot know what key will unlock the door to the felicity of the search. It has been said that at times the ear will love before the eye, and indeed it was through the door of the ear that the auspicious effect of such discourse came to those who said, "Our Lord, we have heard a caller calling us to belief, saying, 'Believe in your Lord,' and we have believed." Sown in the soil of hearts by the hand of the divine summons, "Am I not your Lord?" It then remained to be seen which fortunate ones would be enabled to nurture that seed, for the eternal realm of love is not bestowed on every monarch and king. Not every Solomon is given the kingdom of his search, nor every soul and heart the charter of his sorrow. Those who seek relief are deprived of his pain, for it is a pain not given to those desiring relief. While no man is free of the tribulation of aspiring to such love, nonetheless the searching hand of every aspirant cannot reach the skirt of his majesty of this auspicious fortune. Religion is not by aspiration. Just a second here. This feeble one says, so I guess the author says, "When my heart was smitten with the charms of his face, my body became thinner than a hair on his head. Not every hand may reach out to touch him. Who even am I? A nobody in his domain." A further purpose in the exposition of wayfaring is the refutation of those evil ones of bestial aspect, who worship their own passions, and devote all their energies to the utmost enjoyment of bestial, animal, and predatory pleasures and lusts. Being content, like beasts and cattle, with what the passing moment offers them, they are barred from the joys experienced by men of God, and the enjoyments of those who draw near to him. Out of all the perfections of religion, and the degrees of the people of certainty, they content themselves with the mere form of prayer, and negligent, careless fasting, polluted by endless impurities. Let them not say tomorrow, like the rest of the rueful band, "We were unaware of these auspicious matters." If we heard or understood, we would not be among the people of the flames. And these people of the flames, the Sufi, they seem to be it seems to be a very combative space. Joneed, may God sanctify his cherished spirit, was once asked how the sayings and the narratives of the sheiks. This actually looks a little bit important. This 7th reference here. Am I not your Lord? Am I not your Lord? This question addressed to men's souls in pre-eternity, and the answer, Bala, Indeed, thou art constituted a pact of fealty to God, binding on men for all time. Am I not your Lord? Indeed, thou art. Joni asked how the sayings and narratives of the sheiks profited the Morid. He replied that they strengthened his heart, made steadfast his foot of exertion, and renewed his fidelity to the search. They then asked him if he was sure his answer was from the Quran. He affirmed that it was, and recited, "All that we relate to thee of the tidings of the messengers is that whereby we make firm thy heart." It has been said, too, that the words of the sheiks are the armies of God upon earth, in the sense that they afford assistance to seekers on the path. If, for example, some luckless wayfarer is deprived of the guidance of a perfect sheik, and during his search, ascetic practice, and inner combat, Satan wishes to bar his way by inciting him to doubtful or innovative practice, he may then hold fast to the words of the sheiks, and strike the coin of his state against the touchstone of their trenchant speech. Thus he may escape from the grasp of satanic temptation and the whisperings of his soul, and return to the road of the straight path and the highway of the upright faith. For on this path, highway robbers are numerous, demons in human and jinn form. And if the traveler goes forth without guide or escort, he will soon be cast into the valley of doom. Sheikh Abu Sa'id b. Abu Kir, upon whom be the mercy of God, said that the Morid should each day relate or listen to an amount of discourse of the sheiks equivalent to 1/30th of the Quran. For as has been truly said, one delights in frequent remembrance of what one cherishes. So this Abu al-Qasim was one of the most prominent early Sufis of Baghdad, the first to produce a systematic account of Sufism in written form. The literature of Sufism is replete with references to him, often with an honorific epithet, the elder of the group. Two recent studies, the life and the writings of al-Junayd, and another one. And we have Abu Sa'id b. Abu Kir, one of the earliest Sufis of Khorasan, and the first notable mystic to have expressed himself in Persian. The origins of the Sufi hospice the Kanaka, are closely associated with him, and to him are attributed the first Persian Sufi quatrains, which appear to be like a form of poetry. I'm not versed in poetry. I'm not a literary man. The main source for his life is the biography written by his grandson, Mohammed b. al-Manavar, Asrar Alto, that's a lot of words. Now available in the French translation. Just in case you wanted it. Paris, 1974. Les Escapes Mystiques du Sheikh Abu Sa'id. Studies in Islamic Mysticism, Cambridge, 1921. For these reasons, certain travelers on the path and wayfarers in the world of truth, who have amassed a quantity of this auspicious fortune, while voyaging along the highway of rectitude, have conformed to the precept that the purifying dew shall be rendered on everything, and obeying the injunction to grant everyone his right, they have regarded it as incumbent on their generosity to give the deserving their due. Thus they have bestowed a draught from the fountainhead of the water of life, that is Gnosis, on the thirsty wanderers in the desert of their search, so that pain may be added to their pain, longing to their longing, and thirst to their thirst. So he's basically, this is my interpretation, he's saying that because they are demanding justice, they're demanding judgment on the people, they are causing a drought, a lack of gnosis, a lack of knowing on these thirsty wanderers, so that pain may be added their pain, longing to their longing, and thirst to their thirst. I am like sand, and drink in the water of thy grief. The more I drink, the greater is my thirst. The purifying dew incumbent on the body is fasting. Now, the alternative, if I'm misinterpreting that, then the alternative interpretation would be that the purifying, that these people are actually purifying the seekers, making them even thirstier, so that, because there's everything in Sufism has to do with this thirst. So they could be increasing the thirst, maybe, to help these people, as similar to a form of fasting. As when you fast, you become more receptive to the spirit, they could say. The second chapter is concerning the reason for writing the book, particularly in Persian. This guy definitely didn't want this book translated out of Persian, by the way. God Almighty said, "We have sent no messenger save with the tongue of his people, that he may make all clear to them. The prophet, upon whom be peace, said, address people in accordance with their degree of intelligence. Know that although many books have been written concerning the path, both detailed and concise, and in them many matters of truth and truth set forth, most of them are in Arabic, and they benefit men of Persian tongue but little. 'Tis of the ancient grief one must tell the new beloved, and in her tongue that one must make address. To say la tafel and efel is of little use if thou art with Persians. 'Tis con and makan thou must say." The second footnote, a quatrain of unknown origin, la tafel and efel, do not and do in Arabic, con and makan, do and do not in Persian. The third, we haven't gotten that far. For some time, a group of truth-desiring seekers and sincere morids has been demanding of my feeble self a compendium in Persian, notwithstanding my lack of means and inability. Such compendia may have already been penned in accordance with the capacity and need of every class. They desired, however, one that should be slight of girth and rich in content, set forth the beginning and the end of creation, the start of wayfaring and the finish of voyaging, and treat of the goal and the destination, the lover and the beloved. It should be a world-displaying goblet, an allusion to the miraculous goblet owned by the legendary Iranian monarch Jamshid, a vessel that enabled its possessor to survey the entirety of creation. One of the most common motifs in Persian poetry, it generally corresponds in Sufi symbolism to the purified human heart that reflects the manifestation of the divine attributes in creation. It should be a world-displaying goblet and a mirror to God's beauty. It should both benefit the deficient beginner on the path and profit the perfect adept drawing near to the goal. While I was in the lands of Iraq and Khorasan, never long settled before departing once again, the hindrances of misfortune and calamity robbed me of the leisure and opportunity to undertake the completion of such a work. For each day some new disaster would emerge and bring distraction to my heart and confusion to my mind. It was as if that region were the homeland of disaster, just as the prophet, upon whom be peace, once said, pointing to the east, "Thence shall come disaster." Yet we did not quietly accept those disasters, did not bow our heads to heavenly decree and divine destiny, did not come forth with patience and submission, did not offer thanks for religion and Islam, did not say some evils are lesser than others. Instead, we showed ingratitude for the blessing of Islam until the ineluctable and awesome blows of, "If ye are thankless, my chastisement is surely terrible," descended on those lands and their people. Through the sinister effect of their licentiousness, of the frivolous and the oppression of the tyrannical, and in accordance with God's custom. And when we desire to destroy a city, we command its men who live at ease, and they commit wickedness within. Thus is our word proved true against them, and we destroy them utterly. Ruination was visited upon those lands and their inhabitants. Now, I didn't read the introduction of this book, but it talked about this author having a really bad time in some city, and I'm pretty sure that's what he's talking about here. He was talking about he couldn't make a paycheck in this city. Nobody wanted to hear what he had to say, and he just had a pretty bad time altogether. All the oppression that heaven works is, in short, less than we deserve, if the truth be told. Never did I show gratitude for his bounty, so inevitably he cast me into trouble and toil. It was in the year 617, that's 1220, that the God-forsaken army of the Tartar infidels, may God forsake and destroy them, conquered all those lands. The confusion and ruin, the killing and seizure of captives, the destruction and burning that were enacted by those accursed creatures had never before been witnessed in any age, whether in the lands of the infidels or the realm of Islam, nor have they ever been recorded in any book of history. They resemble only the catastrophes that shall ensue at the end of time, foretold by the prophet, upon whom be peace. The hour shall not come until you fight the Turks, a people with small eyes, red faces, and slight fat noses, whose countenances are like the skin drawn tight over a shield. This saying of his is indeed a description of these accursed infidels. He then added, "And anarchy shall be rampant." When asked, "What shall that anarchy be?" he replied, "Killing abundant." In truth, this event is none other than that which the messenger of God, upon whom be peace, foresaw with the light of prophethood more than 600 years ago. Could killing be any more extensive than this? That in the city and province of Ray alone, where this feeble one was born and spent his youth, it has been estimated that they killed and took captive about 500,000 people. The calamity and disaster inflicted by those damned accursed ones on all of Islam and the Muslims are more than can be expressed in words, and this event is, moreover, too famed throughout the world to need description. But if God forbid, feelings of horror and jealous concern for Islam do not arise in the breast of kings and sultans, to whose care the protection of Islam and the Muslims has been entrusted, the prince is a shepherd for his subjects and accountable for them. If the magnanimity and manly courage of the faith do not lay hold of their souls, so that they can join in union and gird on the belt of obedience to the command of "Go forth light and heavy laden, and struggle in God's way with your possessions and yourselves." Well, light and heavy laden sure sounds like Christ. That's the 10th reference here. Oh, it's in the Quran. Ye light and heavy laden. There's a tradition here. From the failure to ever make a clear differentiation between Turk and Mongol, the term Tatar serving as a general designation for both non-Islamatized Turks and for Mongols. And it sounds like that event concerns the circumstances of the capture and sacking of Ray. See the Cambridge History of Iran. If they do not sacrifice their lives, their riches, and their kingdoms in order to repel this catastrophe, then one must fear that Islam will be totally destroyed, and that it will be overthrown in those few lands where it remains unvanquished. O kings of the world, hasten forth to save some remnant of the faith. Islam is lost, and you are unaware. Unbelief engulfs the earth, and you slumber on. It is to be feared as a present danger that the name and trace of Islam that still survive will also vanquish, thanks to our ill-omened and useless disputes, so that no sign of religion will remain, and it will withdraw behind the veil of dignity. Islam began as a stranger, and again shall become a stranger as it began. O God, awaken us from the sleep of the neglectful. O God, take us not to task for our evil deeds. Give no dominion over us to those who are without compassion for us. Burden us not beyond what we have the strength to bear. Pardon us, forgive us, and have mercy upon us. Thou art our protector, so help us against the people of unbelief. And I can't help but notice the similarity to the AA prayer, the serenity prayer. When the ferocious conquests of those accursed and God-forsaken ones began, this feeble one stayed patiently for almost a year in the lands of Iraq, and in the hope that the morning of salvation might dawn after the somber night of catastrophe and disaster, and that the sun of good fortune might rise again, endured all kinds of severe hardship and tribulation. For I loathed to abandon my children and womenfolk, to part from my friends and dear ones, and to leave house and home behind, and neither was it possible to bring forth from those lands all my dependents and following, nor did my heart permit me to expose them to destruction and perdition. Finally, when the catastrophe passed all bounds and the disaster exceeded all limits, when life itself was endangered and the knife cut through the bone, it became necessary to declare that necessity renders permissible the forbidden. Obeying the command of, O ye who believe, guard your own souls. He who is astray cannot harm you, if ye are rightly guided. I was compelled to abandon all of my kith and kin, profiting from the adage that he who has saved his head has truly profited, and conforming to the principle that flight from the unendurable is a custom of the prophets, I had to depart and trust my dear ones to calamity. And from the introduction, it does sound that this, if I'm not mistaken, that this man did indeed die from getting killed eventually. When no disaster threatened, dearly did he cherish him. But when he saw disaster coming, he left him to his fate. Know then that in times of trouble, there is none who will stand by you. None! One night in the year 618, this feeble one left his abode in Hamadan with a group of cherished dervishes, and confronting extreme peril set on the road to Erbil. Soon the news caught up with us that the accursed infidels, may God destroy and abase them, had reached Hamadan and beleaguered it. The people of the city strove to defend it as best they could, but when their power to resist was exhausted, the infidels triumphed and captured the city. They martyred many men, took captive numerous women and children, and wrought utter destruction. Most of my kinsfolk who had been in the city of Ray were martyred. Hail rained down upon my garden, not a leaf remained on the rose bush. To God we belong, and to him we shall return. Then we severed all hope of returning to our accustomed homeland and dwelling, and saw religious and worldly interests alike to dictate that we should settle in a land inhabited by Dea's self-concerned, ill-concealed by his invocation of Quran and tradition, may have inspired these lines in the first chapter of Sadhi's Golestan. See that no one devoid of honor, who will never see good fortune's face, for he chose ease for himself and left wife and child in hardship. Ooh. People of the Sunnah and the community, and free of the blight of heresy, deviation, and fanaticism, a land adorned with security and justice, where goods are cheap and the means of livelihood abundant, and a pious, learned, just, equitable, and discerning monarch ruled, who might appreciate the true value of men of religion, and grant the accomplished their due. Whenever we inquired after such a place among the perspicacious and experienced, who were well acquainted with the conditions of every land and clime, they replied unanimously as follows. In our time, the region answering this description and the land possessing this property is the country of Roum, for it is both adorned with the persuasion of the people of Sunnah and the community, and embellished with justice and equity, security, and prosperity. Praise be to God, the king of that realm is a perpetuator of the line of Seljuk, a living memory of that blessed dynasty. To the shadow of the blessed baldachin, the people of Islam owe every instant of ease, peace, security, and tranquility they have ever enjoyed. The virtuous and pious works performed in the auspicious age of those God-fearing, religion-nurturing kings, may God illumine the proofs of their piety, were never witnessed in any other age. Raids and conquests in the lands of unbelief, the capture of citadels and castles from the heretics, the building of colleges and hospitals, mosques small and great, and their pulpits, bridges, caravansaries, hospitals, and other pious foundations, the honoring and patronage of the scholars of religion, the cherishing and veneration of ascetics and devout men, the care and compassion shown to all the subjects of the king. These and other means of drawing nigh to the presence of God the glorious had never before been seen. This truth is too well known and celebrated to need prolonged. By fanaticism, Dea doubtlessly intends rivalry and enmity between the adherents of different Sunni mazhabs. His native city of Ray had witnessed prolonged disturbances between Hanafis and Safis in the last quarter of the 6th to 12th century. The heretics, the Ismaili sect known as the Assassins, who had established strongholds at various points in northern and eastern Iran, from which they mounted raids on cities of the Seljuk domain. Exposition for throughout the lands of the Arabs and the Persians, in Turkestan, Fargana, Transylvania, and Kharazm, in Khorasan, Gargistan, and Ghazni, in India, Kabul, and Zabul, in Sistan and Kerman, in Kazakhstan and the two Iraqs, in Diyarbakir, Armenia and Syria, on the North African coast, and in Egypt, in Roum and elsewhere. The monuments of their virtue and that of their vassals are manifest, and the tongues of the people of Islam resound with pious prayer and joyous encomium for that blessed dynasty. May God the monarch almighty make of their compassion, mercy, and tender care of their subjects a mean for advancing to the high degree in the hereafter, and for drawing nigh unto him. May he perpetuate the blessings of just rule and the cultivation of religion in their blessed house until the end of the world, by his grace and generosity. When matters became thus clear to my feeble self, I realized that the means of obtaining tranquility and peace and cultivating the life of the heart, of disseminating learning and summoning men unto God, and of serving in fit fashion men given to pious retreat, were to be found and had only in that land, in the refuge provided by the rule of that blessed dynasty, to pray for whose welfare was a tradition I had inherited from my ancestors and forefathers, and to whose bounteous generosity I and all the people of Islam are indebted. Thus I considered it my duty to set out without delay for that blessed land, to settle in the sanctuary of that realm, may enjoy daily increase and protection of immunity from the evil and the cunning of the unbelievers, and to busy myself with prayer for the welfare of that victorious state. May God strengthen it. Auspicious fortune aided me, divine grace befriended me, and limping and stumbling I managed to reach the frontier of this blessed realm in the company of a few dear followers. The two Iraqs is now obsolete geographical expression designating Persian Iraq, north, central, and western Iran, and Arab Iraq, which is lower Mesopotamia. The word Sahel also means the Red Sea or the East African coast, although such translations would be less plausible in this context. By happy chance we were met in the city of Malatia by 100,000 species of auspicious favor and good fortune, in the shape of the arrival of the Sheik of Sheiks, the foremost scholar of the world, the pull of the age, perpetrator of the line of Sheiks supreme, the shining meteor of the community in the faith, Omar al-Saharavadi. May God profit Islam and the Muslims by granting him long life, and may his blessed breath and visage never be far from us. We counted this as a good fortune and wondrous favor, and considered it an auspicious omen. When we were honored by being received into his presence, that great one waxed eloquent in gratitude for the aid, assistance, and generosity he had received from the monarch of Islam, the Sultan of Sultans. May God perpetuate his rule and elevate his dignity and repute. In the presence of both elect and commonality, he described some part of the virtues and noble features of that one pure lineage and sanctified spirit. In the midst of his discourse, he turned to this feeble one and said, "Since you have been compelled to leave behind your accustomed homeland and your well-loved dwelling place, and have been constrained to lose both time and tranquility, it may happen that ye will hate a thing which is better for you. Settle in this blessed realm, tarry in the sanctuary of this kingdom, and apply the principle of when you find pasture, alight. Although the world is not fitting to be a place of habitation, and treacherous life is of short duration, yet spend what remains of life in the refuge afforded by the auspiciousness of this monarch, who is young in fortune yet mature in wisdom, this sultan who nurtures religion as a true servant to God. If your choice be correct, then cleave to it. Although it is custom of the Sufi to seek seclusion, isolation, and solitude for the sake of God's fear, to avoid the company of kings and sultans, and to abandon all intercourse, nonetheless, one may not shun completely this divinely supported king, who has both a full share of learning and a generous amount of the fruits of ascetic combat, who loves the possessors of learning and the people of the heart. Nor may one deprive oneself and the people of the benefits and advantages derived from attending on his presence." He spoke for a while in this manner, and then sought in the Quran for a sign confirming the rightness of his proposal. Then with his blessed hand he penned a few words to the lieutenants of the king, and turning to me he said, after drawing a sign from the noble Quran and consultation with God the Glorious, "I see the matter to be as I said." This feeble one regarded the order of that great one as the order of God, and I was unable to disobey his command. Then without delay he stood up like the rising sun and departed like the wind, while my wretched self, with an eye full of tears and a heart full of fire, heavy laden like a cloud returning from the ocean shore, set out for the royal presence of lofty elevation. Doubly I was laden with the pearls of wisdom I had gathered from that ocean, and with the sorrow of separation. But the messenger of felicity gladdened me with the tidings of 100,000 bounties, and the impending good fortune of attaining the royal presence mended all hurt and damage. A voice then addressed my inmost heart, reminding me that those who enter the presence of kings and sultans must bear with them some gift reflecting their own state, though falling short of the lofty disposition of kings. Now I was indigent and without means, and the majesty was of truly exalted rank. Hence I replied, "It has been said that the remedy for lovers is, I know, the forsaking of remedy, but still in my lack of remedy I fret and tear out my soul. However exalted is the monarch's rank, it cannot exceed that of Solomon, and however indignant I may be, I cannot be less than an ant. Let me then prepare for that king of Solomonic decree, a gift befitting an ant, and offer excuse for my impotence with these two lines of verse. O king, to carry 100 souls into thy presence as gifts would be less than taking caraway seeds to Kerman. But thou knowest that it is custom for ants to bear a locust leg to Solomon's court. Then, however much I longingly sought a gift, sallying repeatedly forth into the battlefield of reflection, diving into the ocean of meditation, and inspecting both worldly possessions and provisions for the afterlife, I could find no clue of anything that might speak for me in that presence. I inspected my establishment from end to end, and my foot did not stumble on so much as a potsherd. When I had totally despaired, I addressed to all things the verse, They are enemies unto me, not so the Lord of the worlds. And in my impotence and confusion, with humility and abasement, I turned to the presence of him whose generosity is absolute, and who alone is deserving of worship. I took the basket of supplication in the hand of high endeavor, and went forth to beg in accordance with daily habit. Forthwith his bounteous majesty, in accordance with his generous custom, call upon me, and I shall answer you. Open the gates of his treasury of liberality, and showing me every kind of bounty proclaimed, take all thou desirest of these guarded and hidden treasures, and grieve thy heart no more. Taking caraway seeds to Kerman is a proverb having the sense of taking something as a gift to a place where it already abounds. In English, coals to Newcastle. The references to Solomon the ant and the locust leg have the sense that Islam sees in Solomon a prophet king whose rule extended over all animate creation. On the occasion of a review of his subjects, when every order of being offered some form of gift, the ant could find nothing to present to Solomon except the leg of a locust that had been severed in the crush. This feeble one replied, O Lord, if I should take worldly bounties, it would be to no purpose, for the monarch already possesses such riches in boundless measure, and they are moreover of no consequence in the lofty view of that auspicious one. If I should take with me deeds performed in obedience to religion, again it would be to no end. For God be praised, he has storehouse upon storehouse filled with such deeds, and the ship of his lofty intent is heavily laden with the cargo of worship and obedience. Should I take with me the various of the sciences, they too would be of little benefit, for learning and the learned are plentiful in his presence, and he possesses hundredweight upon hundredweight, nay, camel train upon camel train, of the different kinds of knowledge. When God in his grace perceived the loftiness of my intent, he caressed me with thousandfold generosity and liberality, and said, O Aziz to our Mahmud, O devoted slave at the threshold of our mastery, O lover illumined by the light of our beauty, there are hidden gems of knowledge unknown to all but those who know God. If they are spoken of, none denies them, except those arrogant toward God. There are unpierced jewels in our treasury, never touched by the jeweler's file, and hidden in virginal state behind the veil of the unseen, whom neither man nor jinn hath touched. Take as gift a necklace of these precious jewels, a band of these virginal, lustrous-eyed houris, and present them to that servant whom we have chosen, that monarch whom we have raised up, who in our Potiphar-like presence is like Joseph raised to honor from the well, and who shows the patience of Job in the beneficial afflictions with which we try him. Aiz was a devoted servant of a Sultan Mahmud of Ghazna, celebrated for valor, intelligence, and beauty. The relationship between them, celebrated in Persian poetry, became one of the stock archetypes of love. Dea is a beloved slave of the divine majesty, Mahmud, in addition to being the name of Ayaz's master, also has the sense of deserving of praise. There is therefore a double entendre in the phrase Hazrat-i Mahmudi Yama. And who shows the impatience of Job in the beneficial afflictions with which we try him, the shadow of the name of our essence, and the manifestation of the meaning of our attributes, succor of our saints and vanquisher of our enemies, the personification of loftiness in affairs both religious and temporal, support of Islam and the Muslims, the pride and perpetrator of the house of Saljud, may God exalt God. For no other commodity is so eagerly sought in the marketplace of conviction, and no other rare novelty fetches the same price in the shop of innermost truth. This bounty and inspiration were bestowed upon me in the city of Kayseri in the blessed month of Ramazan in the year 618, 1221. At the time when the gates of divine compassion were flung open, the universal feast of generosity lay ready, and the summons of "Where are the needy and the supplicant?" had been sounded. Seizing the advantage that the season afforded, I entrusted the reins of my pen to the hand of direction from the world of the unseen, so that whatever precious jewel arrived in the depths of my heart as a gift from that world might be drawn by the tongue of the pen onto the thread of expression, and placed on the tray of the written page. Then I might take it as a gift to the royal presence, saying the while, "O mighty prince, affliction has visited us and our people. We come with merchandise of scant worth." What he's saying is that he wrote this book for this guy. After renewed consultation of the noble Quran and requested a comparison of the ruler, this Seljuk ruler, to Joseph and Job is a delicate and skillful reference to the sufferings and misfortunes he endured at the hands of his brother, Kekus, and upon the hand of the death of his father, Keksouro, in 1620. Kekobad was imprisoned for a period of 7 years, first in Malatra and then in Harput. Kekos died, and then he was released and brought to Konya as a monarch. The name of God's essence that it referred to is Allah, and there is a tradition that the Sultan is the shadow of Allah upon earth. This tradition is recorded by Ibn Cosima and 2 others, but regarded as weak by al-Bayhaqi in his Soab al-Manam. This phrase of rendering of his title, another tradition. After renewed consultation of the noble Quran and requesting the aid of God most glorious, I adorned and embellished this bride from the unseen with the auspicious titles of that religion-nurturing monarch, that justice-dispensing sultan, whose baldachin is the sky, and whose manner the stars, the pride and perpetrator of the line of Saljuk. May God multiply his glory and extend the shadow of his rule over east and west. Abundant thanks to the Lord of the world, that I have entrusted a jewel to a knower of jewels. He will know, looking upon it with the gaze of his soul, the toil my soul endured to nurture his soul. Our hope of the uncaused grace and boundless generosity of God, the monarch exalted and almighty, is that he will guard and protect our speech and our hand from error and fault, mistake and shortcoming. Open to our heart and our tongue the door to the hidden treasures of the unseen. Permit us to reach our aim by traveling the highway of following the master of the first and the last. Make our work a source of benefit in this world and intercession in the hereafter for ourselves and our readers, and render it acceptable to the hearts of men and pleasing to their gaze, if God the glorious so wills. He is sufficient unto us, and upon him is our reliance. O Lord, make not our hearts to swerve after thou hast guided us, and give us mercy from thy presence, for thou truly art the giver. The prophet is apparently the first and the last, the master of the first and the last. The third chapter, treating of the manner and method in which the book is written. Check the time here. We are at 1 hour and 5 minutes. I believe there were 4 chapters or 3. God Almighty said, He it is who originates creation, and then causes it to return. The prophet, upon whom be peace and blessings, said, People die in the state in which they lived, and shall be resurrected in the state in which they died. Know that according to this verse and this tradition, 3 states were established for man. The beginning of his creation, known as the origin, the period of his worldly existence, known as life, and the obligatory severance by the spirit of its attachment to the body, or its voluntary separation from the attributes of the body, and this state we call return. This book then is based on these 3, origin, life, and return, and God willing, a part containing several chapters will be devoted to each, so that some account may be given of the various states of man at each successive stage within the confines of this brief treatise. Thus, in the part treating of origin, the beginning of the creation in spirits and bodily shapes, and of the realms of kingships and dominion, will be described. In the part concerned with life, the training of man is traveling and wayfaring through the stages of the human condition, the lights of spirituality, the transmuting of characteristics, and the transforming of attributes, his different states as he proceeds along his journey, and the need for the means of spiritual training and progress. All these matters will be set forth. In the part devoted to return, the return to the souls of the felicitous and the wretched, and the manner in which group is brought back, shall be expounded. All this in accordance with the method of the prophets and saints. A section concerning the wayfaring of various classes of men will be added, so that all may derive profit and benefit from the book. Another part has been written by way of introduction, so that the book consists of 5 parts and 40 chapters, as listed and described above. In choosing the number 5, we wish to partake of the blessedness and auspiciousness inherent in it, for it is the number of the pillars on which Islam is based. Islam is built on 5 pillars, bearing witness that there is no God other than God, and that Muhammad is his messenger, the regular performance of prayer, the payment of the purifying due, the fast in the month of Ramadan, and pilgrimage to God's house for those possessing the means. This is a sound tradition, reported by Abdullah, the son of Omar, may God be pleased with both of them. The number 40 was chosen for the chapters in order to partake of the blessedness of the figure, which has a certain property with respect to the training of man. Thus God said, And we appointed with Moses 30 nights, and we completed them with 10. So the appointed time of his Lord was 40 nights. Similarly, the prophet, upon whom be peace, said, Whoever worships God sincerely for 40 days, the springs of wisdom shall well up from his heart to his tongue. At the beginning of each chapter, we have quoted a verse from the Quran and a tradition of the prophet, suitable to its contents, in order to hold fast thereby to the book and the Sunnah. The description that we shall give of the origin and return of man, of his excellencies and deficiencies in the course of his training, and his traveling through all the states and stations, may serve as a touchstone against which aspirants to the path and the truth, the wayfarers and Gnostics, can strike the coin of their state. If they find within themselves some sign and indication of the stations we describe, They will be fortified, and may hope that their feet are planted on the highway of the truth, and that they are progressing along the straight path. If, on the other hand, they find no such indication, they will not be deceived by the wiles of Satan and the oglings of the soul. They will expel all arrogant fancies from their minds, and set their feet on the path of true search, refusing to be deceived by stale verbiage. Chase out empty passion from thy head, lessen thy conceit, increase thy supplication. Love is thy master, and when thou reachest the goal, he, none other, will silently direct thy deeds. The book has been named, in accordance with its contents and purpose, The Path of God's Bondsmen from Origin to Return, and is dedicated to Sultan Ki-Ko-Bad. May God appoint him as one of his elect servants, cause him to tread on the path of guidance, and destroy his enemies as he destroyed Samud and Ad. When the devoted Murid, the enamored seeker, studies this work with sincerity and care, not out of fancy and frivolity, and comprehends the principles it contains, he will perceive who he is, whence, how, and for what purpose he has come, whither and how he shall go, and what his goal and destination are. Right at 1:11. Writing that at 1 hour 11 minutes, probably right around 11 seconds. O soul, the heart of lovers everywhere is sorely troubled by this stage which lies ahead for all. The sword of fate has felled into the bowl of annihilation the heads of countless wise and troubled souls. I'm going to read that again. O soul, the heart of lovers everywhere is sorely troubled by this stage which lies ahead for all. The sword of fate has felled into the bowl of annihilation the heads of countless wise and troubled souls. It will become clear to him for what wise purpose the pure, exalted, and luminous spirit has been shrouded in its lowly, tenebrous frame of clay, to what end the spirit is then separated and severed from the frame, why the outward form decays, and for what reason the bodily frame is restored at resurrection to serve as garment for the spirit. Then he will leave the category of they are like cattle, nay, more misguided, attain a truly human degree, and be delivered from the veil of forgetfulness described in the verse. They know but the outer part of the present life, and of the hereafter they are heedless. With joyous yearning he will set his foot on the path of wayfaring, so that all his gaze perceives his foot will pursue, for the fruit of gazing is faith, and that of pursuing is gnosis, again knowing. Philosophers, atheists, and materialists are deprived of both of these stations, and hence wander in bewilderment. One of these pretended men of learning, who is known and celebrated among them for scholarship, wisdom, and perspicacity, by name, not to call him out or anything, Omar Khayyam, in the extremity of his confusion, while wandering in the wilderness of misguidance, finds himself constrained to say in one of his quatrains, thus confessing to his blindness, "In this circle of our coming and going, neither beginning nor end is visible. None in the whole world can tell us truly whence is our coming and whither our going." And again, why did the Maker adorn the forms of creation, then cast them down to decay and decrease? Should the forms be ugly, whose fault is it? And if pleasing they be, why cause their ruin? That blind wanderer, it is not their sight that is blind, rather the hearts within their breast, is unaware that God Almighty has servants who, through following the Master of the first and the last, have traversed the entirety of creation. They have passed beyond the distance of 2 bowstrings. This attack on Khayyam, author of the excessively renowned quatrains repeated later in the work, is of interest as one of the earliest indications that Khayyam, the mathematician and philosopher, was also a poet, and also as a decisive refutation of claims, ancient and modern, that Khayyam was in reality a Sufi. The great Sufi poet Attar denounced Khayyam in terms very similar to those used by Dea in his work Al-Ela Hinama. In his study of Khayyam entitled Dami Ba Khayyam, the modern writer Ali Dosti takes note of Dea's hostility to this hero, and in order to exact a kind of posthumous and imaginary vengeance, mocks Mursad al-Ibad as a dark forest of hearsay, fable, and fantasy, and stages a fictitious debate before Kekobad in which Dea is decisively worsted. Apparently, Dea, the author here, has some enemies. They have passed there, so he's saying there are people who have God does have servants who through following the master of the first and the last, the prophet, have traversed the entirety of creation. They've passed beyond the distance of two bowstrings, and arriving at the station of, or closer, have lost their beings. They have anointed the eye of vision with the collyrium of his gaze swerved not nor strayed, and studying the verse, he beheld the supreme signs of his Lord. They partook of the manifest light of God, guides to his light, whomsoever he wills. Then in that light, from the station of he sees by me, they witnessed the beginning of the world of command, whence the spirits proceed, and saw how each object emerges from the obscurity of non-being onto the plane of being, and ever shall emerge until the end of the world. They comprehended the mystery inherent in the being of each, and looking out from the window of pre-eternity onto post-eternity, they perceived the end and destination of each class of being, and like a compass traced out of the circle of pre-eternity and post-eternity. Repeatedly they passed from being to non-being, and from non-being back to being. First they were non-existent beings, and then existent non-beings, and at times neither existent nor non-existent. Behind this veil many mysteries are concealed, perceptible only to those free of attachment, for such matters are not within the reach of every passion-polluted intellect. Most men think them mere absurdities, while each is one of the hidden mysteries of the world of the unseen, and only the gaze of the people of that world may alight upon them. As the proverb has it, the language of the dumb is known only to their mothers. When I joined in unison with the sorrow of thy love, 100 times or more to non-being I repaired. The distance of two bowstrings or closer in the Quran, the distance of the prophet from the divine presence at the end of the Mirage, the ascension from Jerusalem to heaven that took place shortly before the Hijra, the expression has been taken by Sufis to mean the utmost proximity to God, with opposite attributes meeting in obedience to divine command. The Mirage was also taken by the Sufi as a model for the spiritual journey. The earliest example is furnished by Bayazid Bastami. Reference 16. I don't see now. My servant continually draws nigh unto me through supererogatory works until I love him. And when I love him, I am to him an ear, an eye, and a hand. He hears by me, sees by me, and strikes by me. Then far beyond non-being I passed and traveled on. A mystery I already was. Now I am mystery consummate. Then far beyond being, sorry, then far beyond non-being, I passed and traveled on. A mystery I already was. Now I am mystery consummate. Consummate. Where are these lost and sightless ones? If there were left in them any desire to search for vision, the scales of egoism could soon be lifted from their truth-perceiving sight with dominical aid and the instrumentality of the path, and on condition of submission. Then they would be delivered from the blindness described in the verse, deaf, dumb, and blind, and they understand not, and instead constantly proclaim, were the veil to be lifted, my certainty would not increase. It was my aim that both elect and commonality should be seated at the beneficial banquet of this book, and that none of the differing groups and classes of men should be without a share in the station of those drawn nigh unto God, or fail to taste the libations of his saints. All should attain this good fortune without abandoning their crafts and trades, their normal garb and clothing, thus causing affairs to be neglected, and the essential needs of men to remain unfulfilled. In the fifth part of the book, the wayfaring of each class will therefore be described, for there is no group whose craft and trade cannot lead to either paradise or hell, or to the presence of God. All three paths lie open at the foot of everyone. The straight path is that path that leads to God. The road to paradise is on its right, and that to hell is on its left. God said, Ye shall be three bands, companions on the right. What are the companions on the right? Companions of the left. What are the companions of the left? And the foremost, those are they brought nigh unto God. Razi, there's a pun. The last line contains a pun. Here translated as a mystery might also be the adjective of place, Razi, thus constituting a signature to the poem. Dominical. This word and the corresponding substantive dominicality will be used throughout this book to render Rabbani and Rabu Biyat respectively. The adjective Rabbani refers to the divine attribute Rab, Lord, signifying the Creator as the solicitous and watchful sustainer of all being. Rabu Biyat is the abstract noun designating that quality, the solicitous and watchful sustainer of all being, dominically. The sheikhs have been said that the paths to God are as numerous as the breaths of men. By breaths are intended the livelihoods, crafts, and trades of men, in the exercise of which they breathe. These paths may be compared to the roads that lead to the Kaaba. From every place, point, and direction where men live throughout the world, a road goes forth toward the Kaaba, and from whatsoever place thou goest forth, set thy face toward the sacred mosque. To depart and go forth is the first major condition for performing the Hajj. Once it is fulfilled, one must set one's face to the Kaaba. For although prayer may be valid, if the direction of the Kaaba cannot be established, Hajj cannot be. The third condition is to traverse the distance separating oneself from the Kaaba. When these three conditions have been fulfilled, it is possible to perform the Hajj. Now this is just my take, just my interpretation, that he may be referring to the direction that could be called the location of where being and non-being are. You would have to first be facing that direction. If you cannot establish the direction, Hajj cannot be. and then you would have to traverse the distance separating yourself from that location. Similarly, each class in its trade and craft must depart from the pleasures of the soul and all selfish interest. It must turn fully toward God in all things, and regard it as a duty to traverse the distance that being constitutes. I feel like he just kind of reaffirmed what I just said. Only thus may it hope to reach the Kaaba of attainment. Wheresoever ye turn, there is the face of God. And now we've got something totally different. Now every direction is a potential gateway to this location. Keep not the company of thyself. Thy companion is a brigand. Sorry, I don't know how to do. I've never learned how to pronounce brigand. Cut loose from self, for in selfhood lies calamity. Thou didst ask, what is the distance from me to him? O friend, thyself is the measure of that distance. In other words, if self is 100%, if you bring it to 0%, God is 100%. That's basically what he said. A description of the proper conduct of each class of men shall be set forth. That's a terrible metaphor, but shall be set forth concisely at a suitable point, God willing. Obscure expressions, unfamiliar words, and phrases caused artificially to rhyme will be avoided, so that both neophyte and adept may profit from the work, and both elect and commonality be satisfied. This is in accordance with the prayer, O Lord, expand for me my breast, ease my task for me, unloose the knot upon my tongue, that they may understand my words. Let me speak, basically, straight with you. Is that the end? We made it to the second part? Totally not done reading. Well, thank you for listening, and next time we will start part 2.